Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the founder of Food Truck Training Group on Facebook, co-owner with my beautiful wife, Melissa, of our own food truck. It's called Food Truck 101, and I'm the executive director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today, I'm going to be sharing a story about when I lived in St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to handle when something goes wrong. But before I get into that, I want to remind you guys I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida this year, November 12th and 13th. I'm going to be a part of the Food Truck Owners Expo, where I am giving two classes, one on writing a profitable menu and one on how to market in the off-season. After I give those two classes, I'm going to be out on the main expo floor. I'm going to kick off the Campfire Networking Lounge, where you guys can sit and join me or other speakers talking about different subjects pertinent to the food truck industry, or you can ask us questions so you can get all your questions answered. Once I get the campfire sessions kicked off, I'm going to be joining the association's booth. That's the National Street Food Vendors Association. We have a booth set up, and you guys can come and join me, learn all about the association, ask me any questions you have about your business, and just talk to me. Again, that's November 12th and 13th in Orlando, Florida. If you'd like to buy your tickets, go to FTOexpo.com, place that order today, and when you do, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. I want to thank Table Needs for sponsoring this episode of the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Table Needs is a full-service POS system capable of handling your busy food truck, cash, credit card, and reporting needs. Check out the link in the description for more information about Table Needs. So let's talk about St. Thomas. I went to the U.S. Virgin Islands in the early 90s. I left a Wendy's franchisee on Friday, and then I'm a part of the U.S. Virgin Islands franchisee on Monday. I had to go through the training process because for some stupid reason, Wendy's International wanted me to prove that I actually knew how to run a Wendy's. It's like, hello, I just came from a franchise, but okay, I'll go through the motions of doing your training. So I got through the training process way quicker than I should have because I already knew how to run a Wendy's. So they sent me to the Virgin Islands. After a few months of working in the Virgin Islands, I got to know all the other managers of the different stores. There was one on St. Thomas. That was mine. It was in Charlotte Amalie. That's right where the cruise ships dock. And my Wendy's was right at the end of that dock. So it was a pretty cool place to be. We had a store in St. John, which is right where the ferry from St. Thomas to St. John would dock. So you could actually walk within like 2 minutes and be in that Wendy's there. And if you're not familiar with St. John, it's mainly a national park. There's very few people that actually live there. Most of the people that do work there live in St. Thomas, but there are a few residents in St. John. And then way far away in St. Croix, which is about 25 minutes by plane, was St. Croix with our two Wendy's there. So basically it was St. Thomas and St. John, because we're real close together, and then St. Croix was really far away. So I got to know all those managers and all really cool people. The manager of St. John, his name is Don, and Don had big aspirations. He wanted to do all kinds of things with his life, and he was also a little quirky. He was one of the people that back then, he used to sign up for all the different kind of junk mails that you could get. He said, I like getting mail, and he would get big piles of junk mail every single day. So anything he could sign up for that was free, he would sign up for. He said, I just love getting mail. He also loved having his passport stamped. He would take it with him whenever he go to the British Virgin Islands or any of the other islands up and down the chain. He just loved getting his passport stamped. But he had a dream. He wanted to own a little cruise ship. He wanted to own a business that would provide a romantic interlude for couples. He said we could provide dinner. And he and I would talk about that. Because he knew I had a background in street vending. I mean, really, vending on the ocean is not any different. There's some challenges for sure, but selling to people is still selling to people. And as we talked, we started networking with all the different people that own boats, because it seems like everybody in the Virgin Islands owns a boat. And we started talking to different people, got to know mechanics, got to know a whole bunch of different people in the boating industry in the Virgin Islands. And sure enough, a really, really good deal for a fairly sizable boat fell into our laps. Now, when I say fairly sizable, it was still teeny tiny. Don't get me wrong. It was basically an open boat. It would seat 8 people comfortably. So us being the crew of 2, that would leave us the opportunity to get 3 couples and then take the boat out to different places around the Virgin Islands. Our goal was to have a little route, and we would make the route appear to be random, but it was not. It was a planned route. And part of that randomness was we would show up on a beach and go, look, here is a grill. How about we cook y'all some dinner? And of course, that was part of the package that they bought. They were going to get served dinner anyway. They just didn't know when and where. And we would uncover this grill. And of course, it was one we'd already planted there, and we had all the stuff to make it work, charcoal and all that kind of thing. So we would cook them seafood or steaks or whatever they wanted to order. We let them pick from a menu, and then we would shop that day, get the food, put it on the boat, and then take it out. So they knew they were getting fed, but we gave the illusion that it was just a random happenstance. Part of our development in running the cruise line, we called it a cruise line, but it was really a little tiny boat. Part of our method of operation was we would do kind of like Gilligan's Island. I was very tall and slender back then. I'm still tall, but I'm not slender anymore. So I very much favored Gilligan. My friend, on the other hand, was shorter and a little bit more rotund, let's say, and he definitely favored the skipper. Even though actually we were both the same age, but physically I looked like Gilligan, he looked like the skipper. So he always wore a blue shirt, I always wore a red shirt, I had the goofy little sailor's hat, he always wore a captain's hat, and we would take people out on these cruises. And as we got to do this more and more frequently, we started ad-libbing different scenes from Gilligan's Island, and we would call each other by those names. And we put on that little entertainment show for the guests of our little cruises. And of course, once we got to those random little islands, we would pull out some food, let them get out in the water and play, or just play on the beach, lay on the beach, whatever they wanted to do. Because all of our cruises took place at or near sunset. And then once a week, we would do a midnight cruise just for the people that were vacationing in the islands. And we would have a lot of fun with those because you can do a little bit more spooky things with it being dark, because there's not a whole lot of light out on the ocean. What we found was, as well prepared as we were, and I'm sure just as well prepared as you are, there are things that go wrong with your facility. And when I say facility, that's going to be your food truck, your food trailer, or in our case, it was the boat. When we first bought the boat, again, we bought it used, and typically when you buy something used, you're buying somebody else's problems. This one had a short somewhere, and it was one of those random shorts that you would turn the key, sometimes it would start, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it would start the second time you turn the key. Sometimes it wouldn't. It was always a gamble on when the thing was going to turn over. Every once in a while, it wouldn't turn over at all. Now, in my books, I share the story of the first time this happened to us. We are in British Tortola, and we have beached the boat, and we're just going to hang out on the beach, basically just watch the girls go by, drink a few beers. At least they were going to drink beers. I was not a drinker, still am not. So they sat on the beach, laid on the beach, watched the girls, drank a whole bunch of beer. We get to go start that boat, and it will not start. And it wasn't one of those where, let's try it 3 times, let's try it 5 times, because every time we tried it, would not start. Eventually, I got frustrated with it, and I figured out how to start the engine manually, and I started it manually, and we went on home. Now, can you imagine if we'd had a full ship of 6 people, 3 couples, and we're out on a small island that's already getting dark, because again, sunset cruises, so it's going to get dark, and we can't start the boat, can't start the engine for the boat? That would be a little bit of a panic, because how are we going to get home? It was too big of a boat to pull out oars and try to paddle, so we would be stuck. And I told Dawn, and I do not want to be stuck somewhere with 3 couples that are going to be panicking, because all we would do is bring enough food for 1 meal. He said, well, we'll just come up with a little routine and make some fun of it while we're trying to figure out what's wrong. I said, how about this? How about we just get it fixed? You know how much that's going to cost? So we start juggling, just like you do on your food truck. Do we pay money to get this fixed, or do we continue to put a Band-Aid on it and cross our fingers and hope that we don't have an issue that's going to impact our business? Now remember, we're only taking out 3 couples a night at most. Every once in a while we would do the midnight cruises and take out a second set of people. I don't think ever our midnight cruises had all 3 potential spots filled. Usually it would be 1 couple, sometimes 2. Those were a little bit more expensive because obviously we're up later at night. It's going to be a little bit longer of a cruise, and we always tried to do it when it was going to be a bright moon and the moon would be up. So we weren't doing it all the time, just on those nights when we felt reasonably secure that if we're going to be out on a dark ocean with us having very minimal lights, at least the moon is going to keep it well lit for us. And again, that didn't happen all the time. But I told him I don't want to deal with this when we're out with 1, 2, or 3 couples and we can't get the thing started. He said, oh, okay, finally. So he broke down and we went and had it looked at, and we were out of service for a couple of days. We had no income coming in for the business while they were chasing down the short, and it took them a while to figure out where the short was. And that was quite costly. Even in the early 90s, it was quite costly. What could have happened, and it would have been a disaster for us, because you got to think about our business in the early 90s. We had no internet, so we're not doing social media, and we're not able to advertise to people that are coming down from the U.S. and other places around the world. that are coming to the Virgin Islands. We couldn't enlist help with the cruise ships as far as advertise our excursion. Our trips typically took place when the cruise ships would have been loading up to leave. So nobody on the cruise ships would have been taking our little miniature cruises. So we had to depend upon a close relationship with the concierge and the different people in hotels that were around the island for them to recommend our little excursions to their guests. And of course, we'd give them a little bit of kickback every time they could get one signed up for us. But can you imagine that if a set of guests got stuck with us for a couple of hours and we couldn't get the boat started, what that would do to our business? Now, if you're thinking, well, wouldn't be a big deal, well, you'd be wrong. In the Virgin Islands, especially St. Thomas, it's a small island. You know everybody. It has 55,000 people. Trust me, within a couple of months of living there, you've seen them all. And you may not know them by name, but you recognize the face. And when somebody does something that's a little bad, word gets around quick. So if we'd have done something that would have stranded 3 people, our business would have completely fell apart. And it would have taken us months to rebuild it. So when you have an issue with your food truck that you know potentially is going to hurt your business, it's going to cause you to be shut down. It may cause you to lose some food. Now you've got an expense. It may cause you to have to cancel something because, oh crap, it broke down. There is no bigger disappointment to somebody that's looking forward to your food truck showing up somewhere and then you have to last minute cancel, and then you have created what potentially could be that shooting yourself in the foot if the reason you canceled was preventable. Oh, you see the tires on your truck are wearing out, but we can get a few more 100 miles out of it. Well, it's been leaking gas for a while, but you know what? It'll take care of itself. I'll get it fixed next week. And now the generator doesn't start. Whenever you notice a problem, you've got to put it on your list of things to do, and it needs to be a high priority item. You cannot put off things just because you don't have the money. Because I tell you what, at the point that it becomes a crisis, you still won't have the money. And worse is it will actually cost you money, because now not only do you have to have the thing repaired and pay for that, you've probably lost the opportunity to have income because you've canceled. That day that we got stuck in British Tortola was the day I told Don we're getting this thing fixed. Of course, I had to wait till he sobered up the next day. But you cannot allow yourself to, it'll get better, or ignore it. Because the only thing that's going to do is cause you to have issues in the future when you're less likely to be able to handle them and less likely to be prepared for them. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Please take a moment to follow our podcast. And if you really, really like what we do, then show us some support. There's links in the description to make that happen. Every little bit does help keep us going. Until next time, you guys have a profitable day.